It's Friday, September 1st, first day of the month, last day of the week. So this is a SPY weekly recap. And today we end up with a 3-bar with a little bit of a downward bias. We took out the high of the previous day and the low of the previous day. And in a second, I'll show you why it was high probability you were going to take out the low of the previous day at a minimum. In terms of the bigger picture, just for a second, this is the weekly chart here, which is green and closed kind of near the highs of that bar. So you kind of are anticipating next week at least testing those highs. As long as we stay above the midpoint of that bar, which is kind of this yellow line, we can be expecting to kind of reach, the next higher target, which is up here. If we should fail and continue below that, then maybe all bets are off. But if we're going to end up with another 2-up continuation, that's our next target, and we'll monitor that for that all week, even though we were in potential pullback mode. The daily chart, there's no real actionable signal on the next day of trading. This is a 3-bar, which means we broadened out a little bit. We could be, getting a reversal back to the upside. We could expand this to the downside a little bit. This is a short-term broadening action, higher high, lower low, and sometimes those are moments in a trend where things continue back the other way. Other times they expand to a bigger time frame broadening, and in that case, that would have to require getting below this midpoint and then getting a 2-down bar and kind of working all the way down there. If this weekly chart is going to expand lower, you're going to have to fail on this bar. So for the moment, we're going to call this kind of a shorter term broadening action that we're expecting at the until proven otherwise to hold within this yellow line and start up at some point. But there's no real actionable signal the next day. The question is, do we end up, the actionable signal is a 3, then either a 2 down, 2 up. It could be a 1 bar in here, more consolidation. Then we can get a 3-2, a 3-1-2 continuation or a 3-1-2, reversal type of thing. So we'll look for the actionable signal more so on Wednesday. But nevertheless, we'll see what the market wants to do in terms of opening price action on Tuesday. So for today, it was pretty high probability you were heading lower given the opening price action. You had the pre-market range between the blue lines. First bar moved down pretty big red. Now, the SPY, if you look at the low of that bar, we failed at the highs. Also very important, if you look at where it gapped up to, as we're kind of making 2 ups here on the daily chart, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6-day up. We reached that final target right up here into that gap. So that's kind of a target that was hit and then immediately selling off. And, we kind of came on that first bar to the midway point. If I go to the daily chart and kind of click on that first bar right there, we're close to the midpoint of the prior day right out of the gates on that first bar. The QQQs were even weaker, and I bought some puts on that based on, the very weak opening there versus the SPY. But then what happened was with the SPY, if you didn't, take that opening trade and kind of have the midway point of the first bar as your stop, you did have this push down, orderly pullback. And I shot a video where I bought some SPY puts right here, expecting the low of the day to be taken out, the pre-market lows, and the lows of the outside bar. And that's exactly what happened on this trade. So an excellent trade to the downside from here. If you didn't catch, didn't get aggressive with that first sell, which would have required you to kind of sit around a little bit and see if he held the midpoint of that first bar. Also, there were other stocks that were heading up in this, we did gap up a little bit, and stocks like Lululemon, I actually bought that one here, and I shot a whole video here. That was a buy, and you can see that had a big push up, pause, second push up. So, it wasn't clear that every single stock was heading down, but the SPY overall, as we discussed, was due for a bit of a pullback with an exhausted daily condition. And out of the gates, you kind of saw it, and there was a very good secondary trade here at a minimum to kind of, once you kind of came below the halfway point of the prior day, you're expecting the outside bar, and that's kind of the way it works with a 2-up failure that comes down to the halfway point of the prior bar. You're expecting the outside bar. So now we see what happens with no actionable signal on Tuesday and a little bit of, consolidation maybe up here at the top. But if you really look at the monthly chart, final thing here, we have this monthly hammer bar from last month. So as long as we kind of hold it, we started down. So we have a reference point now, the open of the month. As long as we stay below there, the flip of this month is red at the moment. So, who knows? Maybe we come all the way down and never reverse up. So that's possible. So the month is starting out red. We'll see where it goes. But should we just kind of hold in here on a little pullback early in the month, the reversal up looks kind of imminent given this bar and the fact that, our next targets up here. So we'll kind of look for reversals. That's going to be the exciting trade. If we get like a 3-2 down, 2 up, or sometime maybe even get a failure bar, on Tuesday, and that comes up through the midpoint of that bar. There'll be something in here, if it's going to develop, that would be exciting to the long side, given the monthly hammer bar that should, that has targets higher. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, end of the week here, beginning of the month, and good trading to the short side today on the SPY, and we'll just see how things open next week.